I think we've all tried them at some point in our life. And if you're anything like me and about the 91% of North America who's made at least one and had it fall to the wayside before the first month without a Y at the end of it arrives, they almost never stick. Yep, statistically, we are in the majority. But do you know what? Being the I want to know kind of person I am, I did some research looking into why this is. And here's a little truth bomb for you. You are not the problem. It's just about that time of year. Are you a New Year's resolution person? I used to be, sort of. By that I mean that I've made a shit ton of New Year's resolutions over the years, but they seldom stuck for more than a few weeks, maybe a month-ish at most. Some years I was going to go to the gym, some years I was going to be more disciplined with healthy eating, maybe I was going to get my house organized and keep it that way all year long. Well, I'm not doing any of those things, so that should tell you how well that went for me. I'm not alone, though. Apparently, only about 9% of people who make New Year's resolutions actually complete them. In fact, research goes on to show that 23% of people quit their resolution by the end of the first week, and 43% quit by the end of January. There's some interesting psychology and neuroscience around this, and that's where we're headed in this week's episode, along with some of the things I now do instead. So let's dig into that. You know how life throws us curveballs? Nobody gets through this journey of life without a few storms. Welcome to Transformative Journeys. I'm your host, Joanna LaRue. Each week, I'll share my thoughts and insights and dig into strategies that can empower you to rediscover yourself, learn about transforming pain into power, building confidence to navigate life's challenges, and cultivating a life of meaning and joy. Join me on this journey of exploration and transformation. Welcome back to Transformative Journeys with Joanna. I'm your host, Joanna, and I am a reformed New Year's resolutioner. I think we've all tried them at some point in our life, and if you're anything like me and about the 91% of North America who's made at least one and had it fall to the wayside before the first month without a Y at the end of it arrives, they almost never stick. Yep. Statistically, we are in the majority. But do you know what? Being the I want to know kind of person I am, I did some research looking into why this is. And here's a little truth bomb for you. You are not the problem. Your willpower is not the problem. Your unrealistic expectations of yourself, though, they're a bit of a problem. Okay, actually, they're the basis of your problem. Our expectation that our desire to implement a brand new habit can override our deeply wired system of beliefs, our well-established routines, our day-to-day stressors, and our current coping mechanisms overnight, they are the problem. So today, we're going to explore what brain science tells us about why resolutions fail, the psychology behind motivation and behavioral change, why reflections and intentional goals are far more sustainable, and of course, some simple, gentle, totally doable tools that you can start using today. So, why don't New Year's resolutions typically stick? It's actually for some fairly predictable and scientifically explainable reasons. We've talked about some of this stuff a number of times on this podcast, but Our brain's primary job is to create predictability in our thoughts and emotions, and it likes to conserve as much energy as it can while it does that. It doesn't like sudden changes to the way we think about things or the way we do things, and it really doesn't give a damn about self-improvement, not even a little. It likes to stay nice and comfy in its current self-centered little bubble, and it hates drastic change. In fact, it detects drastic change as a threat to our safety. Hello again, amygdala, right? So when we decide we're going to make some significant or radical change in our life with our well-intentioned resolution to start going to the gym 6 days a week, even though we haven't exercised in the last year, our brain fucking hates it. And it creates resistance because it takes a look at that change and interprets it as instability and dangerous to its comfy, cozy existence. Resolutions also rely on willpower, and it's a huge fallacy that we're weak if we struggle with willpower. Willpower is an extremely limited resource all around and a pretty poor fuel for lasting change. Willpower tends to fluctuate up and down throughout the day, very much depending on our overall energy level, and it gets used up quickly throughout the day with all of the little and maybe big decisions that we have to make. Had to make a decision about what to wear this morning, yoga pants or something more appropriate for the meeting you'll be in today, withdrawal from the willpower account. Are you going to yell and flip off the guy who cut off in front of you, on the road on the way to work with your kid in the car? No? Withdrawal from the willpower account. Decided on the fruit and yogurt parfait instead of the Mighty McGriddle at the drive-thru on your way to work? You got it. It's a withdrawal from the willpower account. Every time you make one of those little decisions throughout your day, you're exercising a bit of willpower and depleting that account. And when you get to the end of the day, when the decision is to stop at the gym or not to, or to make a salad instead of standing in front of the open fridge nibbling on the kids' cheese strings wrapped in slices of salami, true story, the account is empty. And remember how we've talked in other episodes about how our prefrontal cortex is responsible for decision making? Well, that's actually where willpower lives too. So when you're tired, stressed, overwhelmed, grieving, or just emotionally stretched thin, our amygdala kicks the off switch and willpower goes offline too. Our brains are also wired to prefer quick dopamine hit types of gratification over long-term, this is good for me and will eventually pay off satisfaction. It has trouble focusing on and waiting for those long-term benefits that are promised way off in the distant future. Then there's the cognitive dissonance that creeps in when we set a goal based on who we want to be rather than who we are right now. We're essentially trying to set a goal that's mismatched with what our brain understands to be true about us. And there's a quote that's often attributed to Albert Einstein, but there's a bit of controversy about whether it was him. Anyways, so this quote is, "We cannot solve a problem on the level of consciousness that created it. If we try to make outside changes without first addressing our inner beliefs about who we are, what we believe about ourselves and who we want to become, we'll just keep being and doing what we always have." We kind of need to pre-prime our inner critic to convince it that we are already the person we want to become. Part of this is no longer hating on ourselves for who we are right now. Part of it's talking to ourselves as if we are already that person we want to be. And part of it's starting to make our decisions and actions align with whether that future version of ourselves would thank us for what we're doing now. Kind of simple, but not easy. So this is a great example because it's one that's on my radar for myself because I want to be in better shape to ride my dirt bike this spring. And the truth is that it's an area that I've really struggled with all my life. If we want to be the person who prioritizes being physically fit because we go to the gym or work out regularly, we need to pre-train our brain that that's who we are. Think you're tired and stressed after a crappy day or a rotten night's sleep. How's my future version of me going to feel if I skip my workout today? Do I want them to feel that way? Or do I want them to look back at today me and be proud of my decision? When we shift from chasing an imagined goal to becoming the type of person who naturally does the thing because it's who we are as a person, change is more likely to stick. And I'm going to talk more tangible strategies I'm starting to implement about this in a couple minutes. Next, let's toss in the added element that resolutions often have a component of deprivation associated with them. I'm going to stop. I'm going to quit. I won't blank anymore. Diets, quitting smoking, social media scrolling, and a shit ton of other stuff can fall into this category too. Nobody likes to feel deprived, and our brains feel very, very threatened by the thought of deprivation. So it's not going to go there willingly. And the more rigid we are around the decision we've made to implement that kind of change, the harder our brain is going to fight it. There's lots of other reasons, of course, but let's face it, we don't have time in a 30-minute episode to get into all of them. But where we often do a disservice to ourselves with New Year's resolutions is that we think it's supposed to involve some big sweeping change that everyone's going to be impressed with and go, "Ooh, you're so awesome for doing that," which is also an external motivator and definitely not something that is known for its ability to support long-term change. And as humans, we're just not wired to make big sweeping changes. We are, however, completely capable of rewiring in strategic baby steps, which is good news for all of us because it means that if we struggled with upholding our New Year's resolutions in the past, moving forward, we can actually work with our brains instead of fighting against them. If you're finding yourself in a season of rebuilding, my Bounce Back Blueprint is a free guide packed with simple tools and prompts to help you regain emotional footing when life knocks the wind out of you. You can download it for free at transformativejourneys.ca, or I'll throw a link in the show notes. All right, so let's get into the dirt now, because maybe you find brain stuff as fascinating as I do, but maybe you're saying to yourself, "Enough, Joanna, just tell me how to do the thing." All right, so first I'm going to share what's become sort of a ritual, so to speak, for me every year around this time. As the old year is coming to a close and I'm starting to think about the year ahead, I like to end my year on some sort of a positive note by taking some quiet time to reflect on what I've accomplished or haven't, and what my plans and goals are for the year ahead. I really focus on plans and goals, though not on resolutions. I try to take an honest look at what I've achieved, as well as the things that I'd hoped to accomplish and the reasons why I maybe didn't, so I can try to set myself realistic goals and expectations for the coming year. I also really like to think about why I want to achieve that goal. And I know that, finding your why is really trendy phrase right now. I did a podcast on it, of course, in a slightly different context. But really, identifying your why about why you want to do something is really important piece of rewiring our brains to focus on what's important to us. So, for example, at the end of 2024, part of my reflection included that I'd gotten a really good start on this podcast. I had a name for it. I'd started developing a theme and considered a sort of episode arc. I'd written a few episodes. Given where I was emotionally and mentally around doing a podcast, I knew that I wanted to do one. I was pretty sure I could learn to be, pretty good at it. But I was nervous as hell about it too. But that I had zero idea how to really go about launching one. I considered getting past the thinking about it stage a success and accomplishment at that time. The goal I developed around that was that I was going to learn how to actually launch the damn thing, including the very intimidating tech pieces, in 2025. And remember, if you listened to episode 25, Who Am I to Start a Podcast, it took me almost 6 months to honestly get serious and take the serious actions to make it happen. Linking your goals to your values goes a long way to help you remain focused on them. My why was something I'd known for a long time. From the moment that doing a podcast first sparked my interest, in fact. And I had to apply many of the pieces we talked about earlier around making that goal happen. I had to fight with my amygdala around fear and discomfort about being thought to be out of my league, or worse, being ridiculed. I definitely had to employ a lot of what we talked about earlier around cognitive dissonance and decide that I didn't just want to be a podcaster, that I am a podcaster, and to learn how to ignore my inner critic and just take the small step-by-step actions to become that. I even had to work on the piece around deprivation because I knew that running a podcast was going to be a one-woman show, wasn't going to make me rich or likely even make me enough money someday to pay for someone to help me with it, and was going to take a sizable chunk out of my limited free time because I have a full-time job too. So let's dip back into psychology and neuroscience for a minute to understand why doing something like this reflection and, I guess, goal setting really can be helpful. When we spend some time in reflection, we're meeting our nervous system kind of on a level playing field. Our brains like to have some clarity and some specificity around our goals. When we want to tackle a new habit effectively, we need to reflect on what's really going on in this season of our life so that we can make realistic plan for the what, why, and how of our goal. what's working right now and what exactly do I want to modify or change? What's draining for me and what does my capacity realistically look like? Why do I want to do this new thing? Am I really at a place in my life where it's realistic? And am I actually willing to do it? And hey, if either of those answers is no, that's okay. Put it on the back burner for this year and, maybe revisit it next December. And it's important to have a plan of action. And I'm not talking about a 20-page report detailing all the minutiae at this point. But wishy-washy stuff like I want to get in shape or I want to eat better are just not specific. They're downright vague. You're living on hope with no roadmap or strategy for how to get there. You're relying on that depleted willpower account to get you to a somewhere that isn't even specific. So I'm going to exercise 4 days a week is very, it's kind of specific-ish, but it's not. You're better to define and articulate it. I'm going to have my gym bag and 4 sets of workout clothes in my car every day during the week. On Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, I'm going to make arrangements for an extra hour of childcare, and I'm going to leave the office at 4:30, go straight to the gym on my way home. I'm going to spend 30 minutes on the treadmill and 30 minutes on resistance training. I'm going to pick up the kids on the way home, and we will have a 15-minute meal prep meal on those nights. And then have a backup plan when life gets in the way. On the days when I'm unable to get to the gym, I'm going to pull out my yoga pants, and at 8 o'clock after the kids go to bed, I'm going to do 15 minutes of gentle stretching and body weight exercises. You might need a little willpower, but when you have a plan, you need far less of it to execute what you want to do than if you had to make all those decisions every day after work. And by the way, this is just an example, so don't write horrible hate mail asking you what planet I'm living on where any of those things are possible for real parents, because it's just an example of what a detailed plan could look like. Anyways, what we're trying to do is to use neuroplasticity in our favor. Repeated actions that gently rewire our innate behaviors and belief that we're the kind of person who just does that over time. They also give our brains little hits of dopamine that can help to continue to motivate us to keep doing it. So for me this year, although I did it a little bit later, once I had duct taped the mouth of my inner critic shut and locked imposter syndrome in the attic, I developed a weekly plan for how I was going to manage to upload a weekly episode around my job and my real life. Like literally a rotating 2-week plan that scheduled what days I was going to write the episodes 2 at a time, what nights I was going to record, again 2 at a time, which nights I would write the accompanying blogs, which day I would do my editing and uploading to the podcast host, when I would create graphics, and pre-scheduling them on social media. So, you get it. Setting short-term goals to stay motivated along the way towards your bigger picture goal is incredibly helpful too. So for me, setting up a realistic schedule and realistic short-term goals gave me mini milestones I could work towards. And reaching those gave me those little dopamine hits to keep me going on the nights I didn't really feel like turning off my day job computer, only to turn on my personal computer to create, write, record, edit, whatever. and always plan for setbacks and life to turn your perfectly crafted plan into chaos on toast. I do have to tweak this beautiful schedule sometimes, either because life gets in the way or because the research I did for an episode meant it took longer to write than I expected, or I had a tech glitch that threw a wrench into things and created a shit show for me somewhere. Trust me, that happens too frequently. But I'm still running mostly on the schedule and checklist. But technology like cell phone calendar reminders, apps for online videos for at-home exercise routines, productivity or meal planners can take some of the cognitive load off that old prefrontal cortex and make what feels unmanageable manageable. Anyways, back to goal setting tips. Small, meaningful shifts. Let's go back to the example of exercise for this. Okay, so you don't have time to do a workout 4 nights a week, or a gym membership's not in your budget, or you have extracurricular activities with your kids 3 nights a week. Whatever your challenge is around going to a gym, maybe like me, and you know it's an inconceivable stretch to think that you're going to get up early to exercise. Being realistic is a critical part of goal setting. Make small, meaningful shifts in your daily behaviors that support your goal of becoming more active or more physically fit or healthier. A plan, my plan, could be I'm going to go for a 15-minute walk 4 days a week on one of my breaks. To do this, I will have my walking shoes in the back of my truck or under my desk during the week. I'm going to set an alarm on my phone for 10:30 a.m. on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday before I'm too tired or stressed, and put on my walking shoes and walk around the block 3 times. Or maybe you have a slump at 3 p.m. every day. Set your alarm for 3 and kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Your 15 minutes of walking is also going to pick you up and help clear your head. Some people like to do what's called habit stacking or habit pairing. You're attaching a desired habit to something that you already do, like doing squats while you brush your teeth. I've been doing this for a couple of weeks and it's actually working pretty good for me. Or doing a set of stretches while you're waiting for your coffee to brew, or standing at the photocopier waiting for it to do its work. This approach uses our brain's already existing neural pathways and patterns to build a habit instead of starting from scratch to try and create a brand new one. And the last thing I'm going to suggest is to build some kind of accountability into your goal. And I don't mean splashing your goal all over social media. The truth is that we don't associate social media with accountability. Telling our 732 social media connections that you're going to eat salad every day for the next year is not going to give you any sense of accountability to live up to your words. On the other hand, sharing your goals with someone who's going to support you and maybe even help to hold you accountable really can make it easier to stick to and achieve your goals. I have to tell you that the podcast mic that Rob bought me for Christmas last year, staring reproachfully at me from the shelf in my office, not only showed me that he had faith in me and my goal, but it also in the end gave me the nudge to not waste his love, his faith, and his money, and to just do the damn thing. All right. If you have a notebook or paper handy today, I'm going to give you 2 sets of prompts that might help you with your end of year reflections and maybe help you set a goal or some goals that are aligned with your life and with your truth. So make it kind and be truthful with yourself. What are some of the things that went really well for me? And what was something that maybe didn't go as I'd hoped or planned? What did last year teach me about who I am? Where did I feel most like myself, or what is something I was thinking or doing that didn't feel authentic to me? What drained me that I don't want to carry forward into the new year? And I really like this one. What surprised me this year about my resilience? And here's a few goal-setting type prompts. Where is one area I want to grow in, even if it's slowly? What would small progress look like? Not perfect progress. Where could I look for or ask for support for my goal? And how does this connect to the person that I want to become? So this week we talked about setting goals as opposed to New Year's resolutions, and it works better for me. And I gave you a few tips on how you can start to think about some goals that are meaningful for you, or even just one. And as we wrap up, I want you to remember, your goals are personal and should be meaningful for you. Not be based on what others think you should do, think is best for you, or expect of you. You don't need New Year's resolutions to grow. You don't need a specific date on the calendar to think about your goals or start putting them in action. And you definitely don't need to decide you should become a new person just because the date says January 1st. You're already growing. And do you know how I know that? Because you're here on this journey with me. Thank you so much for being here with me today. Come say hi to me on Instagram at transformativejourneys.joanna, or visit my website, say hi to me there. Did you know that I have an enhanced version of this podcast on YouTube? I'm not ready to go live and do video for this yet, but I will get there. It's one of my goals for this year. But in the meantime, I'm creating this for you with on-screen prompts, beautiful visuals, and a more immersive experience. So head over to my YouTube channel, Transformative Journeys. And if you've got an idea you'd like to hear me talk about, leave a message. You might even see it in a future episode. And lastly, you know that hitting that subscribe button, tapping the bell icon, the like, whatever it is on your platform helps my show get noticed. So I will make you a deal. You tap it, and I will keep dropping the best of what's in my heart and soul so we can keep learning together. Until next time, this is Joanna reminding you that it doesn't matter if you fall. What matters is how well you bounce. This is Transformative Journeys. See you next time. Your support helps me keep creating free tools and honest conversations. Because let's be real, even when you love what you're doing, sometimes it takes a whole lot of metaphorical duct tape to hold it all together. If you'd like to toss a little love into the duct tape fund, you can now support the podcast at buymeacoffee.com. I'll put a link in the show notes. Just wanted to throw in a disclaimer. This podcast is for entertainment and informational purposes only and should not replace the advice of a medical or mental health expert. I'm not a licensed counselor or a therapist, just a human with a mic and a story of growth and resilience. No degree, no fancy letters after my name. I'm a full-time student at the School of Hard Knocks, University of Life, where I figure I'll graduate when I take my last breath. In other words, I'm just Joanna, a fellow human being on my journey through this thing called life, and your concierge on this transformative journey.